Welcome to today's satsang. Today, I think that given the conversation that we're having just now, it's important for us to explore a few things which are, I feel they're very common for men in our journey of growth and of spiritual progress and relationships. And these topics come up, I think, time and time again, and it's the issue of integrity. Like, what does it mean to be integrity with ourselves, with our journey, with our heart, and with our partner? Responsibility, like what is really our role in our relationships? Where do we take our relationships? How do we navigate them in a way that we can be proud of? And similarly, guilt and resentment. What happens when we do not want to take responsibility for something? Or what happens when we outsource that responsibility or delay in making certain choices, having certain conversations? So let's start with this. In many ways, we are cultured, I think men and women, to be good people. You want to be a good boy, you want to be a good girl. Why? Because for the society, this is very useful. And for our parents, it was extremely useful. What I mean by this is that a child that has too much energy, that is maybe a little too reckless or too volatile in his emotions or her emotions, there's nothing wrong with that child. In fact, that's just a child through whom life is bursting with a lot of energy. And as he or she grows older, they're bound to settle and learn, hopefully, to navigate their own intensity. However, we can agree that to be alive, it's a certain level of intensity and responsiveness, connection to the life around me, and a certain amount of involvement with the life around me. Death is the opposite, is when that is gone, at least the physical expression of that. The closer we get to the grave, usually the less, but people they tend to be less involved, less intense, less vibrant. Even in the way they walk, they kind of slow down. In the way they speak, they slow down. For many of them, the way they think, like their cognitive functions, physical functions, everything slows down. But when we, our first years of age, and our puberty for sure, and for some men up to their 20s and 30s, there's this latent testosterone drive. For some women, they have their own version of this, and there's a lot of aliveness within us, which is great, because that means that there's a lot we want to do in life. There's a lot we want to explore. The problem is that when we're kids, that aliveness is just energy, it's pure energy. And pure energy has no shape or form. It can be shaped and formed in any way. And some of the ways in which it often comes out as we're learning to cope with our own emotions, it can be anger, it can be throwing a fit, it can be sadness, it can be ecstasy, it can be many things that we see children going through. A child in one moment is blissful, the moment they're on the floor crying and screaming like the world is gonna end, and within 2 seconds they're back into laughing like nothing happened. This is just life flowing through them. They don't have a mind that says this is wrong, I should hide this, I should keep this within myself, this is not accepted. No, they're just, whatever they feel is what they express. So as we're growing up, usually our parents start placing a lot of walls and like cages around that flow of life that is latent within us. Why? Because for most parents, it was very hard to be in connection with their own emotions. Most of them, for our generation, they probably lived and died in, maybe not in total unawareness, but maybe with high degrees of it. A lot of their life was probably numbing, just working, just getting through things, just trying to keep the family together, perhaps, which meant that there was not a lot of room for emotions, because emotions are uncertain, emotions are volatile, they're intense, and not knowing how to deal with them within themselves, first and foremost, that was rarely extended to the kids. It is rare. I think today there's more and more parents that are raising their children consciously, but usually most of us were raised in a way where, especially men, our anger was pushed down, sometimes beaten out of us, or sometimes just um, like really pushed down through often more anger. Like if I will get very angry and I will go into a place of rage, maybe my mom will get, she will show me that she was bigger and angry, right? And sometimes physical coercion, sometimes verbal, emotional withdrawal, whatever it is that happened. When we showed an intense emotion, it was often met with uh, punishment, sometimes physical, sometimes just emotional, through the shape of distance and disapproval. So we learn when we're kids that, oh, like it's not okay to feel anger. It's not okay for me to think or feel differently from what mommy wants, or what daddy wants. It is definitely not safe, because if I want something and I feel this is my truth, but my parents don't want it, or they go against it, then I'm gonna get in trouble. And the more unstable my parents are, the angrier they are, the more violent they are, or the more emotionally disconnected they are, the more I find myself walking on eggshells. Any of you who has had a parent, father or mother, that was physically violent or emotionally abusive can relate to the experience of a lot of subtle ongoing anxiety as children. Just walking around the home felt like we're watching out, because we know that we're gonna get in trouble. We're gonna do something wrong, and mommy is gonna lose it, or daddy is gonna lose it. So we develop this tippy-toeing attitude towards life that in that moment keeps us safe, because if our parents are volatile, if they withdraw love every time that we have a strong emotion, then it is in our best interest to be loved by them, so that they can take care of us, because on our own we cannot survive at that age. So at that time it was necessary for survival, but as we grew older, we realized that, wow, suddenly there are things that I feel that I have a hard time expressing. There are emotions that I think are wrong within me. There are emotions that I shame, I judge, and I unconsciously do the same that my parents did with me, right? Maybe they beat me out, like to calm down. Maybe I try to do that. You know, a lot of people beat themselves down with work, with exercise, some more people with substances, some more with porn. We have our way of kind of submitting ourselves into a pacify nice guy or nice girl, for the women watching, kind of ways. And sometimes if we had a parent that was overly critical verbally, then maybe criticize, I'm feeling sad, why am I feeling sad, why am I feeling angry, why am I feeling resentful. We judge and shame that which we're feeling. If we had a parent that disapproved or just disconnected, the moment that we were crying, they just put us in a room and then went away, which happened to a lot of people. Then we may do that with our own emotions. I'm feeling something that it's unpleasant, and because I was never shown how to deal with this, or this was never accepted, then I lock it in a little compartment in my heart, and I don't look at it. I get distracted. Activities, friends, fun, alcohol, traveling, sex, women sometimes. different things. For women, a lot of times, the most common one tends to be through food and work quite often. It's like there's ways of hiding and ways in which we push down that which we shame and judge. The problem with this is that we're left handicapped in our relationship with the world, because it's not all of us that enters a relationship, but it's a fragmented self that enters it. And the problem with this is that it's a fragmented self that is being led by trying to be nice, trying to be good, trying to still win the approval of mommy and daddy, trying to be the man or the woman, like the boy or the girl, that doesn't ruffle anyone's feathers. We were so judged and shamed in our difficult emotions growing up that we grew up thinking that not to have these emotions is a sign of being well adjusted, being good people. So we attach ourselves to trying to be good people, trying to be a good partner. And what this leads into is a lot of repression, first and foremost, and resentment. Why? Because suddenly I come back into a place where I am playing the exact same game that I played with my parents, but with my partners. A game where it is fear of mommy losing it or mommy feeling hurt, which translates to fear of my partner feeling hurt because I don't trust her enough as a woman, mature enough to handle her own emotions, or as my boyfriend or husband getting hurt because I don't trust him not being able to manage his anger and his fragile ego. So we walk around each other trying to please each other, and we call it love. I'm going to be nice because that's the nice thing to do. That's the loving thing to do. I'm going to stay in a relationship because she's going to get hurt. I'm going to accept that she crossed my boundaries. I'm not even going to raise a conversation around my boundaries because I don't want to hurt her. This is the equivalent of us as kids thinking, I'm not going to yell or run too loud or be too noisy because mommy and daddy are tired from work and they're gonna get angry. So we enter a relationship as children, still looking for their approval, for the approval of their parent through their partner, still seeking that love that we never received, that unconditional love that was not given to us. We try to get that from our partner, and we try to win love in the same ways that perhaps we had to when we were kids. I think the biggest problem with this is that the parts that we shame, that we judge, that we just tuck deep down within us, they contain a lot of the energy that is available for us. What this means is that, let's say if you had like 100 units of energy in your system, and then when you were a child, this was flowing freely. You had 100 units throughout the whole day, and you laughed, you cried, you screamed, all of it. You were very alive, and life was very joyful. Sure, intense moments of pain, but very quick ones as well, in and out of it. As we grow older, then, oh, I can't feel anger. Oh, I can't be a bad guy. Oh, I can't say that thing. And then we just push and push and push. And then suddenly that energy gets dropped within us. That part that was meant to just flow becomes stagnant. This is the origin of disease in many cases. You know, if you keep your anger for too long, you're going to end up having ulcers, gastritis, stomach problems. You do not draw boundaries for too long, you're bound to have autoimmune disorders, autoimmune diseases. You don't speak your truth, you're going to have things with your throat. There's so many things, so many ways in which all this energy, all this water that was supposed to be flowing within us, became stagnant. And in that stagnation, it starts to rot and to mold and to stink. But the bigger problem is that instead of having 100 units of energy available to us, suddenly 10 of these went with this sadness that I cannot share with my partner because well, she will get hurt. The anger that I think it's bad. This other thing, the sad, the grief, the sometimes, and for many people, even the bliss. There are so many couples that are afraid of showing their partner that they're happy. If they're happy in a way that does not involve their partner. Like they went on a trip, they treated themselves to a nice restaurant, or maybe they went out with a friend for a walk and grab a tea. Their partner loses their mind because, well, why did you go for a walk for somebody else? Why did you enjoy yourself without me? This is very common, especially in younger relationships. I remember I once dated this girl that she will not, if she knew that in my past I had gone to a restaurant with somebody else, whether I was dating the other girl or not, and I enjoy myself, she will not want to go to that restaurant. It's like she did not want to know that I had fun before I met her, or that I had a beautiful time without her. So a lot of times well, partners demand from each other that their emotional expression is safe for them. And very often, your anger is not safe for me, your sadness is not safe, your needs are not welcomed, your joy sometimes is also shamed or watered down. So we push and we push and we push, and then we end up with maybe 10 or 20 units of energy available to be engaged in that relationship. From that place, there's very little we will want to do, especially sexually, because sex demands that we allow ourselves to feel fully. I mean, if we're not having it from the head, if it's from the head, then sure, you can paint yourself 1,000 fantasies in your head, and it's equivalent to watching porn while you're having sex with somebody else. You're just watching porn and you're masturbating with somebody else's body. That's the whole really difference. But sex that becomes nourishing, we need to be present and available, and we need to feel the juiciness, the passion, the intensity, which means we need to feel like that throbbing life within us. But how to feel it when we've packaged chunks of it? We're not allowed, I'm not allowed to feel sad with my partner or to feel anger, but she expects me, or I'm expected to ravish her, to be able to be this, like, I don't want to say violent, but dominant, strong, sexual stallion. He's like, it's not gonna happen. If you're a woman and you want your husband to be, or your boyfriend to be stronger, but you judge when he touches his anger, it's not gonna happen. In the same way, as men, we sometimes like, oh, I want her to surrender. I want her to just become a never-ending orgasm of bliss and joy and pleasure. Like, sure, but but when she's crying, you don't want that. It's not gonna happen like that. Like, we need to open our arms to all of her, so that when that moment comes in intimacy, she can trust that she can let go all of her. And very often, if we've done a good job, a woman's orgasm will be followed by tears, and tears of grief, tears of healing, tears of, for her, it will be a psychedelic experience. But where I'm going with this is that when we walk around life trying to tiptoe around our partner's insecurities, thinking that it's out of love, when in reality it's out of niceness, out of pleasing them, and out of fear that they may disapprove us, or sometimes out of fear that they may be upset, because we were taught, oh, don't upset mommy, don't upset daddy, be a good kid, be a good boy. We walk around life like this, we become impotent, we become dry, because there's no life that is available, when there's not much you can do in a place where you have to walk like bit inch by inch and be silent, and you can't say anything, and you can't share anything, you can't express yourself. And the bigger problem is not oh, my partner has been controlling me, and my partner is insecure, and my partner doesn't take care of her emotions or his emotions. The bigger thing that we need to look into is that it is us that have chosen to play this game. For whatever reason, we learned at a very young age that if I'm a good boy, I'm going to be liked and approved of. And to a degree, that happens. And I cannot count how many times, especially in my 20s, I was the guy with whom married women will cheat on their partner, on their life's partner. And I always thought a woman will only cheat or be unfaithful if the relationship is ugly. And in truth, that does not what was happening. Many of them were very happy. They had children. They had been together for 18, 20 years. They loved their husbands. They had, up until then, sometimes they had never done anything with somebody else. But they felt that there was something missing. And they couldn't pinpoint what it was that was missing in that relationship. But I could see it very clearly. Their partners had become just nice guys that were there to please, nice guys that were there to like accommodate, to provide. I'm not saying these things are wrong, but when that's all that we do as men, then we just become a very nice friend, a friend that takes care of them, that raises their children and pays for their stuff, but not a friend that they desire, because there's all this sexual repression, because there's all this darkness or these heavier emotions that never get to see the light of day. So it is our job in our relationships to ensure that we bring the full expression of us. That is our responsibility. Our responsibility as partners is to act out of love, not out of pleasing the other, not out of niceness, not out of fear of how the other may react, but out of love. And you will find that love and being tolerant, love and being nice are not the same thing. The most loving thing that tends to happen in many people's lives is also often, but not always, the most painful. For a lot of people, the death of a loved one, a father, a close friend, a child, it's the biggest tragedy. But also sometimes it touches them so deeply that their life changes thanks to that, and they feel the love of the creator through something that maybe in the moment was experienced as a curse. And it is our job, if we want to be conscious partners, to learn to understand where the line is. And this doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to be loving, so I'm going to tell you, I hate this about you, I don't like this, and I'm just going to say it the way that I think about it, and you deal with your emotions because you're an adult. That's not the way that it works. We can do things with grace. If you're pure truth and no heart, most people can't handle it, unfortunately. We live in a society where people's emotions are too fragile. So we need to work around that. And working around that means there's certain tact, certain grace with which we can communicate things. But we should always aim to speak our truth, even when it's difficult. And I would say, especially when it is difficult. To share my emotions, to not dump them on the other person, but open ourselves up, especially those emotions that we're afraid may not be welcomed. Because if I cannot show my partner that I'm feeling anger about something, it doesn't mean I'm angry at her. I I can feel anger right now without being angry at you. I can feel sadness without making you responsible for my sadness. The same way I can feel in love with you without thinking that you're the mere source of it. So we need to be able to show our partner the full extent of who we are, and recognize where we shy away from doing that. Because the moments that we shy away from voicing our truth, from speaking what is in our heart, what is in our minds, is the moment that a deep pattern within us is emerging. And it's a pattern from childhood. And we're bound to recreate a very similar scenario, or at the very least to feel like this is very familiar. And very often we feel it is not one woman or one man. It's often one, the next, and we think, wow, like all women are like this, or all men are like this. And it's like, no, you're drawing, you're pulling certain traits out of the people that you meet. And a big part of this is because you're also holding certain things back, that if you were to share them, they could bring a different part of them, or they could be a deal breaker in the relationship, which will also be a good thing. Because why would you want to be with someone that is only okay with you being in a way that pleases them? That is like a fast track towards torture. Yes, Lucas, you have a question?
Oh, just sorry. Um, um, I found it pretty interesting that you mentioned this at this time, because last night I was with my girl and I realized I was hurt by something and I just wanted to push her away and I couldn't handle that. So I went outside to on a walk and I realized, wait a second, 6 hours earlier in the afternoons, I felt the same thing or something similar and didn't dare myself to express it. And I saw myself as becoming very, very small and not really there, you know. And I realized, okay, after going outside for a short moment by myself, I gotta go back in, meet her, and actually express that to her, like, hey, I want to push you away at this moment. And I did, and it brought us closer together, even though it was difficult to express.
Hmm. How did she receive it?
Oh, she told me multiple times that she's very open to receiving it. Like, she even told me that she wants me to be like I am and not hide things. So that was
And
beautiful.
how did that feel for you, to be received in that which you really wanted to hide?
It allowed me to go into it a bit more, but also I can't say that necessarily felt healing. It almost felt like the hurt became stronger as I allowed myself to feel it. So in a way it was beautiful, but also it was difficult to handle, I would say.
Yeah. Yes. And here is where this is such a fine line, because what I'm sharing can be used as, oh, I feel anxiety and pain and attachment, and I'm gonna go and dump this on my partner, hoping that she resolves it for me. And we can become or the emotional mess, which for men, if we're dating women who are feminine, um, women want to feel you, but very often they don't want to be the ones that they don't want to feel like they need to heal you, right? So it's very different. Imagine this, like you're a warrior and you're getting ready to go to a battlefield the next day, right? Maybe back in the day you're sharpening your sword and you feel that this may be the last time that you see your partner, and you're grieving, and maybe you're outnumbered and you're certain that I'll probably die, and there's fear and there's a desire to run away and to hide, and guilt because you're feeling this way even though you're a warrior. You can come to and then your beloved is maybe next to you on the village. You come to your partner and you say, like, you can share your heart, in a way that brings you closer, in a way that you share, like, I want to do this, and this is fucking painful, and I'm afraid, and this is where I'm going, and this is how I'm feeling. This is the truth of who I am right now. And that can evoke very profound intimacy. But you could also share it in a way that you're hoping for her to console you, hoping for her to be like, no, like, come on, baby, you're a warrior. Like, in that moment, she becomes your mother. So sharing our truth needs to come with complete ownership of it, and complete absence of expectation of how the other person takes it. So it is an art, because also for a lot of women, a lot of us in general, and I include myself in this group, to deal with somebody else's emotions can be difficult, and it often is. So it's a lot easier, you know, my partner is going through emotional waves of intensity. It's easier for me to tell her, like, hey, we need to communicate in a clean way, and to try to coach her around communication, than it is for me to be present around just the intensity that she's living. But that is what she needs. But it is difficult, because if I have not learned to hold space for that within my heart, and somebody else comes with this, it's going to feel very foreign. So this is something to thread carefully, because especially those more tender emotions, we want to own them. At no point we want our partner to feel like we are at the mercy of what we're feeling. Especially that we don't want her to feel that she's the one that has created these feelings. Yeah, so that's a line to navigate with care, and before the pain heals, or before the emotion moves, like, it usually needs to reach a certain amount of intensity, so that there's clarity on the message that the emotion is bringing. So, for example, Chris, you were sharing earlier that you allow your partner to move in, and you didn't draw a boundary, and you started to become resentful. The resentment doesn't build in one time. It's like, it's a series of small boundaries, small lines being crossed, where you could have said something and didn't. And the day comes, which it seems like it has come for you, where, like, all right, you're ready to end it. You're ready to let go of things. Who knows if things could have been different had a boundary been drawn? Maybe not, maybe yes. But the point is that things can slowly accumulate to a place where they explode. And it need not be like that. But for this, we need to learn to be attuned to what we're feeling, and learn to share it moment by moment. This is our spiritual practice as men, is holding our truth as the highest, and learning to speak it, especially when our partner is not gonna like it. This is one of the hardest things that we can do as men. Remain connected to our heart and to our deeper truth, and share it with our partner, especially when she's not gonna like it. And I'm not saying just spit it out to her face. No, share it lovingly. Why? Because ultimately, this is what love really is. It is not being nice. It is not pleasing each other. It is coming closer to truth. And if I'm afraid of upsetting my partner, if I'm afraid that she's being difficult, if I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt her emotions, both of us are going to suffer, because I'm taking away a big part of who I am. Meaning, I'm going to find explosions somewhere else, or in my relationship. I'm going to there's just so much you can repress before the life that is within you forces itself out of you, and it will do it through sickness, through addiction, vices, or through doing something that you thought, how did I do that? That's unlike me. It's like, no, it's not unlike you. It's just all of that was trapped and it was a ticking time bomb, and then it came out. um
I think it's been a little bit of all that, honestly.
mhm,
Certain behaviors, certain words, things that I would have never expected. And I just look back on it and I think it's just a lot of pent up feelings and resentment and things that should have been addressed earlier. And I think that I addressed them, but I addressed them in a very half assed way.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Sometimes like sarcasm or jokes, about you having the most expensive storage unit in Nevada, or, jokes like it started with a hair clip and now you have a room and a closet, like joking around like that.
mhm,
Although we both know what the joke is and where it's coming from, when you're not firm in black and white and say you've crossed a boundary that I wasn't ready for you to cross.
mhm,
I never really invited you in to my home to spend every night here.
mhm,
Yes, you offer a great amount of benefit to the home, and it's nice to have somebody there while I'm out working, traveling.
mhm,
Thank you for taking care of things. Thank you for all you do. But at the same time, I never invited that into my home. And it's just, it's just really affected things. You get down to the root of the problem. Well, I didn't invite because I didn't feel the relationship was going down that path. You know what I mean? So I think even if I would have held off and waited until I was ready, I was never really ready because I never saw a future of that magnitude with this person. So now you don't see the relationship going down that path. Next thing you know, you have them in your home.
mhm.
And it's just I mean, I've already learned a lot just in our time together
Yeah,
in this course, like what I could do better in the future. But I mean, I'll never let it happen again.
yeah, yeah. It's drastically important that we're clear, and because we think that we're doing her or him a favor by keeping quiet, but what we don't speak, what we don't put into words, we're gonna put into jokes, into eye rolls, into gestures, into distance. Um, I believe this was very interesting. I think the first year of relationship with my wife, with Anastasia, there were so many things that I just swallowed, because in my previous relationships I used to be like very often the opposite, like my way or the highway. This is how it's gonna be with me. You don't like it, like get the fuck out. Sometimes in these words, and it was rough. It was not ideal. I don't recommend it to anybody. But there was no resentment in me towards my partners, because it's like, this is what I want, and I made sure that it was crystal clear. Um, there was not a lot of inclusion into their experience or what they wanted either. So, anyways, after that, those relationships ended, and I felt, you know what, maybe I was too rough, maybe I crossed the line, maybe I lacked compassion and empathy. So I went to the other side, where I became like extremely like accommodating. Oh, like thinking a little too much or overthinking about making sure I don't cross their boundaries, making sure I don't annoy them, making sure I'm a good boy. And the beginning of our relationship was a lot of that. There were many things I didn't like, but I was not drawing harsh boundaries like I used to. And I believe about a year after we started dating, we reached this point that felt like sticky and ugly. And now we were chatting, and we were both ready to break up with each other. And I didn't understand, how did we get to this point? And I felt a lot of heaviness, a lot of disconnection. I didn't want to see her. I just wanted to work, to be busy doing other things, to travel. And I thought, where did the love go? Because I used to love this girl when we met. And then one day we were traveling, we were in the mountains, and we sat down, and she started complaining, we don't have sex anymore, we don't have this, just complaining. And I reached my tipping point, and I said, you know what? Can I be honest with you? And you may not like it, and I may not be very articulate as I'm sharing this, but I just feel that I want to be clear about things. She like, okay. I said, and I'm sorry if this hurts your feelings. It's not my intention. I just don't know how else to say it. And I started opening up about everything. I said, I feel resentful on you about this. You're nagging me, you're complaining. You never ask me how I'm doing. I don't feel seen. I don't feel understood. I come home from work, like I'm working my ass off all day, and I come home and you annoy me because I left one sock outside of the laundry basket. Like, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but this hurts me. So I started like everything that I had repressed, and I didn't know how much I had repressed until I started speaking. And then it was like, I'm this and this, and all the things that I resented came, and I said, you know what? And I don't judge you, but I think because I've been resentful of you, unconsciously, I don't want to spend time with you. I don't want to fuck you because that's a way of punishing you for the hurt that I feel that you don't recognize. And it's not your fault, because I was the one that decided to shut up and not say anything because I was afraid of making you upset. But anyway, so in that moment, I shared everything, not blaming her, not judging her, took responsibility, because I saw it's me who was afraid of telling her what I was really thinking. It was me all along. Yeah, and I said, and I understand, but perhaps this isn't for us. You're also in this place, this phase of your life. This is probably what you need. It's probably what I need. And for the first time in that year, I was honest, like fully honest with her. And I said what I really was thinking without, like, beyond my fears and my self-judgments. And it was so interesting because, like, of course, it was painful. There was like a back and forth. She also shared resentments she carried towards me. It was not a fight where we're attacking. No, it was more an opening of our hearts. Like, I'm letting her know what's going on and why I've grown distant from her. And she did the same. And in that moment, we said, like, okay, it's been a good run. Like let's leave it at that. And in that moment, we agreed to end our relationship because we felt that there was just so much we had accumulated. And then on the drive back to the city, it was so strange because I just felt horny for her. I just felt I really wanted her. I felt this strong desire, and she was feeling the same. And then we were thinking, are we starting a cycle of toxicity, of living and coming back and living and coming back? And it wasn't like that. What had really happened was that all my horniness, all my turn on, all my desire, all my love was trapped in all the stuff that I had not said and I had not shared. And the moment that was kind of on the table in a healthy way was the moment that I was able to come back to myself. Like, I started feeling again, like feeling like a man, feeling strong, feeling like alive. And in that aliveness, free from resentment, suddenly I found her attractive again. So when I don't speak up, when we don't speak up to our partners, And speaking up, I'm not saying you have to go and complain and nag. You will never get anything out of your partner through complaints, especially if you're a woman. Women never do it. It's gonna backfire. But if you can share your heart when it is difficult, sure, it may suck. You may have a conversation that is very awkward, but there's no resentment, meaning you will treat your partner nicely. You will probably still feel attracted to her or to him. You will like one another. And I think it's a small price to pay for us to engage in temporary discomfort and conflict in order to protect and better orient the long term and the bigger vision of our relationship. When I don't tell her, hey, I have a boundary about this, I would love for us to slow down. This is going very fast, and I wanna welcome you in my home, and this feels a little bit rushed. I would love for you to take your things back, and slowly I will invite you when the day comes that I feel that I'm ready for this. We can do it. Sure, no woman wants to hear that, but they would rather hear it and deal with the pain and the, oh, I'm not good enough, and their own inner nonsense for maybe a few hours or a few days, than have you for 3 years be contemptuous and like jaded and not wanting to come home to see her because many things, but one of these things being you didn't address the thing when it was just a little seed. So now we find ourselves in relationships where a lot of very ugly seeds have sprouted, and there's a lot of weeds and herbs that stink, and we're thinking the garden is, but it's messy, it's too much work to fix it right now. I don't even know if I like this garden. I don't even know if this is my garden. I want something with flowers and more beautiful. Sure, fair enough. Sometimes relationships are, I don't want to say damaged, but sometimes there's too much that is beyond repair. Or let me correct that. I don't think any relationship is beyond repair, but the energy that it will take to repair it is way beyond what both partners can and are resourced enough to invest in it. So a lot of times we need to counter losses in many ways, and our wins too, because that's a big lesson. But we need to remember that it's not that this garden didn't come like this. We made sure to turn a blind eye, to turn away from the things that we knew were important to us and we didn't speak on. We turn a blind eye, and then we're wondering, oh, this garden went to shit. Next one. No, it's gonna keep happening because it's not the garden. You're a bad gardener. Maybe you're not picking the right flowers. Maybe you're not picking the right soil. That's also part of the process. Being a good gardener means you make good choices about where you plant the seeds and what kind of seeds you plant. So yeah, making a choice and misaligned choice with a partner, that's the mother of a lot of problems. At the same time, when we feel that we made a wrong choice or a misaligned choice, it was the perfect choice because it was a choice that we made unconsciously. There was no conscious thinking, meaning this is a choice that reflects where I'm at emotionally, where my karma, my trauma, my unresolved stuff is operating. It's like the woman that dates guys that always beat her up. Of course, this doesn't take away the pain and the responsibility that every human has to control their actions and never to engage in violence. But, and I had a friend like that she had like 4 of her ex-boyfriends that used to beat her up. And I thought, where do you find these guys? Until, and she would say, oh, it's this guy. And then she will break up with them and then go and find herself dating another drug dealer or somebody else that will do the same thing. And then until one point I realized, like, whoa. And I think I've spoken about her. Even when she was single, sometimes she will be lifting weights and she will, by accident, drop a weight on her head and have concussions. So there was a part of her that felt like pain was necessary for her to feel alive, that she had to be punished for something. And she will do it to herself unconsciously, a lot of accidents, or she'll get into relationships where the men will be violent. And these were a strong reflection of the way she saw herself. A lack of self-worth, a lack of self-love, a lack of many things. So the relationships that we think were a mistake or that maybe we didn't choose well, they were perfect. They are perfect, and it's very important that we don't leave them until we get clear on what the lesson was there and what we're no longer going to do. Because otherwise we're bound to turn even a beautiful garden into something nasty. This is also possible. The next woman you meet, you may fall in love with her. You may think, I want to give this woman all of my children. This is gonna be my wife or my husband. If it's a man, like the next person you meet, maybe you may feel this is my person, and you can turn that person into someone nasty or into someone that is a copy of all your exes. Why? Because all the unconscious stuff is finding expression or withdrawing and withholding expression. So I want to wrap up today's satsang with this. Our full range of emotion is a big part of who we are. It is our responsibility to be good owners and conscious owners of our emotional reality, meaning I can be grieving because I felt pain when you did something, and I can grieve in front of you, and I can be crying without at any moment, not in my thought or my feeling, making you responsible for my pain. I can connect to my anger in a way that does not cross or invade your boundaries, or in a way that is not violent towards you. I can be angry without being violent around anybody around me, even without being violent towards myself. I can be many things. I can feel many things. And these feelings, the problem is not the feeling. The problem is suppressing it or letting it explode. And these are two sides of the same coin. People that are volatile are usually people who suppress themselves a lot. In my book, I wrote that the perverted pedophile and the priest often find themselves in the same places. Why? Because one is like, I'm just gonna let it all out, my unbridled sexual perversion and aberration. And the other one is like, I'm not gonna feel anything that has to do with sex. And both of them find themselves in very unconscious spaces. Same thing is bound to happen to us. If I repress my emotions, if I withhold what is truth, if I don't share what is important to me, just as if I shout it and I complain and I nag and I become a big mess when I do it, in these two, I'm bound to relive the cycles until I'm able to be a good steward of the ship that my consciousness is, that my body is, and navigate through the ocean of emotions and these storms that come without ever judging or blaming somebody else for them. And above all, understanding that every time that I hold something from somebody, because I want to be a good boy, a good girl, I want to be seen as a good partner, I am recreating a childhood pattern. I want to please my parents. And out of that pleasing, I cannot be real, because then the real may be judged, may be shamed, may be abandoned, may be left aside. The problem is that when we do this in our relationships, we sacrifice a big part of who we are to be who we think our partner wants. And if there is love, ultimately what our partner truly wants is for us to be ourselves, to be authentic, to be real. And this will never happen if there are parts of us that we hide in shame, in guilt. This will never happen if we're afraid of rocking the boat, if we're afraid of upsetting our partner. In fact, the more that you are afraid of upsetting your partner, the more resentment you're going to build. And the day that you're going to explode, you're going to cross a line and you're really going to hurt them with your words, with your actions, with your passive aggression, or perhaps with your complete disconnection, because you didn't have the balls or the ovaries to be in your heart and speak your truth, to bring all of yourself to the table and not just the part that you thought or you assumed the other person wanted to see. Only when I bring myself forth fully and honestly, I have an honest chance at being loved by who I am and loving with all that I am. It is also the only time when I give the other person a chance to say yes or no to the truth of who I am. But if I only give them the pretty parts and the nasty, all the nastiness, that stuff, if I keep it away, sure, this is very easy to love. The refined, curated part of yourself, always happy, always charming, always blissful, always nice, always accommodating and pleasing. Of course, that's very comfortable, but it's not truthful, it's not genuine. And if someone only loves you for that, you are forever going to feel unhappy, unsettled, misunderstood, and especially unseen in your relationship. And it's not going to be your partner's fault, because it's not, oh, she doesn't see me, he doesn't see me. Well, what is there to see if you're not bringing all of yourself to the table? But you must bring yourself with elegance, with art, with grace. It's not, here's my mess, deal with it. Nobody wants to deal with that. Not even your coach, not even the people that you pay for that. No. If you repress it, you're bound to explode on your partner or within yourself. And the explosion within yourself is sickness, anxiety, depression, many things. But we can be truthful, we can be in connection to what we feel, and we can commit to being loving and not pleasing, meaning my priority is that I'm as honest as I can with where I'm at, who I am, what I like, what I dislike right now, because that's going to evolve. That's my priority, to be truthful and honest with my partner and put myself forth fully and authentically. It is not my responsibility how they take it. It is my responsibility how I communicate it. But beyond that, beyond me doing the best I can to be caring and compassionate in my share, it's for them to deal with. And it is okay if they become upset, and it's okay if they hurt. All of us have been hurt at some point, and many of our pain in the past has been the greatest source of growth, of transformation, of clarity. Of course, if you're plucking the weeds from the soil, the weed hurts. You're taking the life away, but you're taking the life away of something that was destroying or was bound to destroy the whole ecosystem. I think that's okay. That's a fair sacrifice to make, to let go of what is untrue, so that a relationship can be had in different terms, in terms where I'm not hiding, I'm not tippy-toeing, I'm not resenting, judging, or distancing myself through work, through business, through activities, through alcohol, so that I don't have to deal with the reality that I have failed myself and my relationship when it comes to being honest about where I truly stand. It is our responsibility, especially for the men, also for the women, but it is our responsibility in relationship to be more committed to truth, which is a synonym of love, than we are to pleasing each other or to keeping each other happy. Because it is not your duty to tend to your partner's insecurities. You can support them, you can comfort them if needed, but it is not your duty to be the caretaker they never had, and it is not their duty to parent you in the ways that you wish your parents had. This is something that as adults we need to separate. I need to learn to parent myself, and taking care of this, I can partner with somebody else. And I can draw lines when they are trying to become a parent or trying to be parented by me. I can draw lines when somebody is doing something I don't like, when they're crossing my boundaries. It's gonna hurt for sure. It's gonna be awkward. It's gonna suck, yeah. But it's gonna suck a lot less than years and years of quiet desperation and numbing out and your life dulling away and in confusion and remorse and thinking, oh, they're such a good people, but I'm not very sure. Like, no. Sometimes it's better to let them go if your truth is not something that they welcome. Sometimes it's great to let them suffer if your truth hurts them. I mean, assuming you communicated it properly, because that points them where there's work to be done within themselves. So yes, thank you once again for being part of this. We went a little bit over the time, but I think this is a very much needed and interesting exploration. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Nico.
Thank you, Lucas, for being part of this. Yes, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, gentlemen.
Yeah, such wise words. Thank you. Sorry, it was a little bit one-sided, but get the video going and appreciate all your assistance as always. Good seeing you, Lucas.
Yes.